Who are my Tampa natives? I love how mixed up it is. So we have an amazing perspective. And I'm a transplant. I grew up in Boston and Rhode Island, which is why I talk so fast. People think that I'm overly caffeinated to the point of speaking. I slow myself down. I'm like, is it Morse code yet? So if I start, slow me down. Just say, whoa. I want everybody to introduce themselves. We have incredible insight today. Past, present, future. A little bit of, who knows, some secrets, some juice about the history of Tampa. And I'd love to challenge you when you say hello to everybody to also maybe give me Tampa in a word to you.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Garrett Greco. I am a fifth-generation Tampanian. My family came right here to Ybor in the late 1800s. I have a wife and a baby here. I've built a career here. I'm a real estate broker and investor, and I also have a podcast called the Tampa Bay Developer Podcast. We talk about history, growth. We have on some interesting people around town that are affecting this region in a huge way. Has anyone here seen the show, TBD Pod? Few people? Cool. Walt's been on it. I'm sure he'll tell you about it a little later. Tampa in one word. That's an interesting question. There's so much happening and so much going on here. Tampa in one word.
When we were chatting.
Remind me.
Pioneer. So pioneering. I don't know, that struck me.
I like that word, pioneering, because Tampa has an interesting opportunity. People that have been here for a few years have seen massive changes. If you've lived here your whole life, you've definitely seen some incredible changes. But I think we have an interesting opportunity to be the city of the future, like the new version of the American downtown. A lot of exciting things happening here. Yeah, pioneering. Thank you for reminding me. I like that.
I was listening.
Tampa, I'm Ron Weaver. I'm a retired real estate development lawyer, and I also spent some time in Boston in law school, and I'm a grandfather of 4 grandchildren. I asked 2 of my grandchildren last night, what word described Tampa the best, and one of them said spicy. Spicy, great answer. And the other said sunshiny, and I said, the younger one, sunshiny. And I said, in what way? And they said sunshiny, and then we got this God-given great climate and attitude, sunshiny attitude. So I didn't tell them mine, which was Tampa in one word is badass. Okay, here we go.
Let me see, is this one working? That's going to be hard to top. So I'm Walt Chansey. I'm an architect, interior designer, and a developer here in Ybor City for 36 years. Come March, so we've been here for a long time. Moved to Tampa for really not warmer weather because I was in North Florida and South Alabama, but came to find a city, a bigger town. I'm from a very small town in Alabama. I was looking for a city, and I thought Tampa was really big back then, so to me it was, but came for the excitement and the growth to be an architect right out of school. And immediately, I was telling Ron, I got kind of thrown into my own firm. For the one that I worked with for a year closed down on us unexpected, and I threw out a shingle in an apartment on Davis Island and knew I needed a space to grow the firm. And at that point, the artists and writers and architects came to Ybor. So that brought me down here. I came to a building owned by Alan Kahana just behind where the Hoya Hotel is, and it had a refrigerator full of beer. And I said, I'll rent it today if the beer comes with it. And we made a deal. He split it with me, and we had to go guava ween that night. And those of you who don't know what guava ween was, it was one of the coolest celebrations in all of Tampa. So that's where I got my start. Have been here, still in Ybor City for this much time, and I plan to one day slump over the drawing board in Ybor at a ripe old age of 120. So thank you.
All right. So the goal today is to have a discussion about the past, the present, the future, and really tie it into some takeaways, tangible takeaways for all of you as you think about your goals, your business, your brand, what you want to achieve in this vibrant, badass city where we are full of spicy ideas. So from each unique perspective, I thought it would be interesting to get started. We're talking law, architectural development, community connection, real estate. What is a defining moment in either, it can be recent, but a defining moment that really put Tampa on this trajectory? If we start with you, Garrett, you were saying, you really feel like we are a city of the future. What makes you think that?
Well, I think a defining moment, it's hard to pick a particular moment. Water Street, I think, is the one everyone thinks of, right? There's this like pre and post Water Street Tampa. But Water Street itself, when Vinnick got here, he started buying that real estate around the arena in the early 2010s, 11, 12. So to say Water Street is the moment, which was started 18, 19-ish, right, completed a few years ago, that was, started 15 years ago, right? So I think the moment is just to say now, meaning the past few years and the next few years, right? We're in this huge transition period, and it's incredibly exciting to see.
I like that. The moment is now. And Ron, you were, when I moved from Boston, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was a professional hockey player who saw a lot of the country, right? And I said, I'm thinking about moving to Tampa. And he said, why? Why? Is what I would have asked you 5 years ago. He said, that used to be a truck stop full of strip clubs. And that's it. And I was like,
We got
now
rid of the
I
truck
know what
stop.
you
We got rid of
did.
the truck stop.
Now I know what you did. But he said, things have changed. He said, now when I go and I, play my away games there, we're going to Michelin star restaurants.
Yes.
We're looking into real estate to invest in.
Yes.
And he's like, so, hey, have at it, have fun. But how interesting is that from like, truck stop to Michelin star? Is there a moment that you think got a key milestone that got us there?
Well, in 1857, a also egregiously, arrogantly overdressed guy named Henry Plant came with first wife to town for her tuberculosis. That day, they got off, not the train. He'll bring the train on January the 24th, 1884. Out of the goodness of his heart, 13,000 free acres per mile he built from Kissimmee. And that train meant we got cigars and y'all and the world because of that train, January 24th, 1884, because he saw the opportunity when he brought his first wife down for her tuberculosis in 1857.
1857 was the moment.
1857, they arrived and saw Tampa. 1884, they built that railroad.
So here you go, now
Were you
and
here at that
1857.
time?
I was here, egregiously overdressed to greet him. I greeted him, so I'm still wearing his outfit.
That was a low blow, Ron.
What about you, Walt? Is there something that comes to mind that maybe is somewhere in the midpoint of the 1800s and now?
Yeah, I've got to go. I've got to start with Garrett. I've seen a lot of starts and stops, and it's take Ybor and the growth. There seems to be spurts of things happening in Ybor and then not happening. I'm seeing that now is it's today and in the next few years. Water Street kind of defined it for me personally when I saw Bill Gates come in and partner with Vinnick and commit to $3 billion and 3,500 units and bringing in Morris and Midgie architects and planners and Con Peterson Fox and people like that to Tampa to do projects in five-star hotels from the Edition and JW Marriott. When I saw that it was really happening and not just a plan, to me it's like it was an aha moment for me. So yeah. And again, piggybacking on what Garrett said, that is now kind of go forward. It's like, oh, wow, there's a lot more now than that coming.
I want to stick with you for a second on that note. It made me think of something when I was reporting. My photographer said, we need to do a story on the number of cranes on the skyline. And I said, what do you mean, the number of cranes? He said, just look and count. He had been here for more years than me. And he said, if you look at the cranes, they tell a story. They tell a story of what's being built. And he did these incredible time lapses, just watching them spin and move. And we looked at exactly that, the development. So bouncing off of that, how important is the way a skyline develops, the way a city looks, to the vibe and the energy from an architectural standpoint?
Well, yeah, I mean, the crane, I'll talk to when I first came down and, had everything, my wife and I and our belongings in one small Mazda GLC and moved into Tampa, and for the small country boy to come into the high rise. And at that time in 1987, when I came here, there was that activity starting. There was the Round Building, the Beer Can Building, there was the Barnett Bank, there was the Ashley Towers. Those were all getting built at that time, and I'm going like, wow, look at this. And then shortly after, we had kind of a mini recession, and things just slowed down, and it seemed like forever. Like, where did that go? Where did the cranes go? Where did that happen? So now you start to see it again, and it immediately tells somebody, a visitor coming in, that, wow, there's a lot happening here. So the crane, we joked, is the new state bird, and especially in Tampa today. So that just shows a lot of vibrance. How the skyline looks, to me, a city's more about feel than just looks. Yes, it's great to see these great high rises coming in, and interesting buildings and great architects they're coming to Tampa. But it's really an overall fabric of the whole urban environment. The Riverwalk, a huge feather in Tampa's cap that started the development. Armature Works, what's happened at Midtown. So it's not just Water Street, not just Ybor, not just Gas Works, but we're seeing that all over. The important part is how the whole city ties together and how that feels and how it lives and how it operates. So I think that's a lot is being woven together, and we're yet to see the overall, final product or the next continuing product.
How does it change the momentum? Yeah. Ron, when you think about the infrastructure, are there any lesser known developments that you could share that really shaped what we see happen? I like to ask him these things because he knows all the secrets. He knows all the juicy things. Anything that you think really, and it could be recent, that really is going to impact how we grow?
Yeah. I think maybe one of the least known stories is the reason that Martinez Ybor and his cigar factories that made this whole area was because he was a 14-year-old in Spain, and he was fleeing the gendarme to make him join the army at age 14. So his parents sent him to Cuba. He learned the cigar trade, came to Key West. We recruited him to Tampa, gave him a $4,000 subsidy from the Greater Tampa Chamber to get us cigars. And the second favorite is a similar kid who's also exactly 14, who is the Newman behind me. And the Newman family is in Cleveland, not Tampa. They're not in Key West. They're not in Havana. They're in Cleveland, Ohio. And Mom is looking at this kid that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And she takes the kid, 14-year-old, original Newman, great-grandfather of this bunch, that's here now, Drew and the gang and Eric and Bobby. And he goes down to the local cigar guy. There's 40,000 people rolling cigars in America. 40,000. The only survivor is this one, because to this cigar roller in Cleveland, Ohio, Mom's thinking, I can do something for this kid, find him purpose, find him life. So pays him $3 a week to learn how to roll cigars. Not a salary to roll cigars. Mama pays him $3 a week to learn how to roll cigars. He does, and now he's the only one of the 40,000 who roll cigars in Cleveland in the 1895. Sir.
Sure.
Do you know how to roll a cigar?
I do not, no. I'd love to learn upstairs.
Neither do I.
It can't be that hard, right? I mean, it's one ingredient.
I
so-
can't even smoke a cigar. Tastes like burnt chocolate coffee paper to me. I know it's a delicacy, and it's
You're in the
something that
wrong
people
place
enjoy.
today.
But I'm in the wrong place to say I try. Listen, I'm like, even with sports too. Like I wanna be like the best fan ever, but I'm not. It's dots throwing dots to other dots, but I will be the best sidekick of anybody who wants to smoke a cigar or go to a game. I'm your girl. But you have to know your weaknesses and what you're good at. With the people that you get to talk to on your podcast, are there any conversations that are particularly memorable in terms of insight about what makes this community successful? Do you have a favorite?
Well, episode 100 is coming out in a couple weeks. And yeah, thank you. It's been a long road, long but short. I started the podcast, it'll be 2 years in February, so not that long. By the way, our producer, David, if I'm yelling at someone like off camera about pulling something up, that's the guy, David, right there. You can get his autograph later, it's okay. We shot Jeff Vinnick for episode 100. And the detail he went into to talk about his vision and how, initially and you'll watch the over hour-long conversation for the details, but basically he was looking for a sports team to buy. He loved hockey. He searched the country. He lived in Boston. He wanted to come to the sunshine like many other people do. You even asked the question. People in this crowd came here for our weather. So he buys the team and he realizes there's available real estate. And he just says, well, if I own the team, I probably should own the lot across the street. So he does that over and over again. And that vision developed over years and years and years. And like I said earlier, it's been a 15-year journey at Water Street. And so to hear that man talk about that process, he had never done a real estate development before. He partnered with Cascade, which is Bill Gates' investment fund. They had actually never done a project like that before. It was brand new for everyone. And to hear that man talk about the players, the people, the relationship he had to build with the city government, the county government, the state government to get that project done, and then to go there and you go to Boulogne and people are enjoying it. I mean, it's like, for those of you that have been in Tampa for a long time, nothing was going on downtown, And to see that transition happen so quickly and to talk to that man, he was probably the most amazing guest, second, or I would say right ahead of Walt Chansey. Walt Chansey was a close number 2.
And I see you nodding. Let's have you weigh in here. Ron, go ahead.
Thank you. Walt Disney was also a badass. He may not have seemed like a badass, but his family grew up in Lake County, and then the freeze, 1895, chased him off. Then his first teacher looked at him and said, "You have no imagination, kid," and headed him to another place in the classroom. No imagination. Walt Disney will come to Florida and will change the shape of Florida with Disney World. And basically, just like you said, the nature of his vision of a whole community, the nature of the love, of Florida that was originally his family's here in Lake County. And then, do you know the difference between Viagra and Disney World? There isn't any. It's a 45-minute wait. It's a 45-minute wait for a 3-minute ride. Walt Disney was a badass,
Oh my God. Probably Walt.
And that's and that's when you drop the
Are
mic.
you up? Are you up?
You better ask another question. I need a subject. And don't make me follow him again. I want to go after Garrett.
Well, we'll change up the order here a little bit, right? So, the interesting takeaway besides that was here we have this city that has these moments that catapult it forward. What I'm getting from each of you, it's sort of this slowly all at once thing. If that makes sense, you see things quietly happening, and the people who are paying attention know. But for the rest of us, we go, oh my gosh, when did that building go up? How are so many people moving here? I want to look at a little bit more recently the pandemic and what happened right after that, because a lot of the things that we're talking about, I've only been here 10 years, and it's very different today than a decade ago for me. Was there anything about the pandemic in particular that you noticed, Walt, that really changed the fabric of this city and who's here?
Well, I was, when the pandemic happened, I remember I had one really tough time in my career, and it was the Great Recession, the 2008, 2010 era, and, had some business issues then. When COVID hit, I thought, it's over. So I was actually sitting in my office with a big whiteboard of how do we survive, how to have 35 souls in the office, and we can't work anymore, and what's going to happen. and looking at, business and, people like, I don't know if I'm going to continue that project. And then 2 months, 3 months later, all of a sudden the phone's ringing, with people with masks on, still talking and wanting to do this. So it was just odd that what I thought might have been a catastrophe for development and architecture really 3 to 6 months later became the opposite. And I'm not sure really how that, once we knew we were past the real danger of COVID, we just started seeing things happen. And our phones were ringing off the hook. We got extremely busy again. And I think that, and I don't know what that really did to maybe the mindset of people of, if I'm going to build my, big new home, I might better do it now, or if I'm going to do this building, I might better do it before the world ends. I don't know, but it did change, and it seemed to accelerate as soon as the big danger was over, development, throughout this region and other places where we work.
Yeah, jump right in.
Quickly on that question, I noticed in the law firm, the same fear for a couple of days, but then the clients call with these crazy questions like, do I have to pay the rent, during COVID because people aren't going in, and then hundreds of legal questions. So we were busier than before because of that. But then what did real estate look like now because of then? Suddenly we got people renovating their houses by the tens of thousands, and all the merchants and all the contractors are fixing up the existing homes in ways they should have done 20, 30, 40 years before for them and their family and now their business. And the office buildings had, and then I'll close, a flight to quality, meaning they'd go to their employees and they'd say, I want you to stay, and they say, I'm not staying. What if I built you this amenity? What if I did this? What if I relocated the office nearer to you? So it was a flight to quality, meaning that the good guys, to keep the good guys and girls employed, went out and did the right thing with the new office building, the new locations, and the nature of the beast that is commercial real estate, even out of COVID, as a surprise from what could have been the devastation.
Yeah, you have to jump in here with the real estate perspective.
Well, I mean, I'll talk about it from a young, ambitious person's perspective. This is a pretty young crowd. Maybe, I don't know if you know, is there a particular industry that this crowd, are y'all real estate oriented? Everything, right?
Everything, all over the place, right?
But I think you all will probably share my experience through COVID. And Jeff and I actually argued a little bit about this on the show. My position on COVID for a young person was, in terms of a growth, right? COVID took what would have probably happened in 5 or 8 years and shrunk it down to like 6 to 12 months. And for young people, and I can speak from this from a real estate perspective, as I'm buying property, so I flip houses, I've bought commercial property, I've owned luxury homes and Section 8 homes and everything in between. There was a massive shift in real estate value that happened that left a lot of us behind. So when I was looking to buy a home this summer, what I paid this summer was literally at least double what I would have paid pre-COVID. And COVID was only, I guess now, almost 5 years ago. Crazy. It's not that much time. I might be wrong, but like 1982 to like 1987, there probably wasn't like 150% increase in real estate, right? No. So I think for young people, right, 20 years, much longer period of time. I think for young people, the challenge is that quick acceleration. I just feel like a lot of us got left behind. You got to pull your bootstraps up and do what you got to do. I don't think there's anything we can necessarily do to mitigate that. We kind of are where we are. We have a lot more people living here. But I think that's something not a lot of people are talking about, is how young people have had such a hard challenge as real estate has appreciated so much. There's neighborhoods in Tampa that are up 200%, 250%. So
that's really an interesting topic to just stay on for a moment, is for everybody in this room especially, the challenges that we face, in this kind of accordion that happened with the pandemic. What's some advice that you have if you're building your business, if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to get into a new space? Maybe some of you are still working in a hybrid way, working from home. Are you even going back to the office? Can you even afford to get that commercial space? Any advice? We can just bounce right back to you, too, about playing a little bit of catch up. I personally think that that's what makes It's difficult in Tampa, but it makes it a little bit more feasible than other cities that I visit and work in, where I think the younger entrepreneurial population is almost completely boxed out of the downtown, boxed out of the neighborhoods that they want to live in.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing a lot of people at least try here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Our wages are still low compared to the real estate prices and other prices in business. You just have to stay dynamic. I mean, understand that the world probably isn't the way we were taught it was when we were growing up. Going to college and getting a job and staying there for 30 years, it's not necessarily the path forward for us and our generation. You just have to stay dynamic. Whatever business you're in, hedge your bets and prepare for something like that to happen again. Maybe it's not a pandemic. Hopefully it's not like a nuclear war or anything like that. There's just a lot of crazy things going on nationally and internationally. And I think the best thing you can do is build resilience for yourself and your business. And when you do start a family, same thing, try to find a house that's adequate, that you can be there for a long time. I might sound like Dave Ramsey, but don't take on a lot of debt. Just understand that the monopoly board we thought life would be growing up, I was born in 92, it's just shifted. Stay dynamic, expect the unexpected.
Would you agree?
I would, absolutely. Sound advice. I think maybe one way is to find that hill upon which you'd be willing to die for a cause. And as you see that in your philanthropy with respect to not just inspiration of donors, but the simpatico with donors and what they're after. And I recommend you find a cause of a hill on which you'd be willing to die. And that is your financial, your credibility, your time, your treasure. If it's affordable housing, then go all in. Affordable housing is so urgently needed by so many people with these costs. And we're nationally, statistically, 33% of every budget goes to housing. The national average is 25%, which means we are killing folks' chance of paying for medicine and daycare in the average family. And then transportation ought to be 13% like it is in Cleveland, and the average of the entire country, and it's 25% here, with so few options because of our transportation funding cowardice. And as a result, find the hill on which you're willing to die, because that's how you really will feel a part of this badass community. Sir, Walt?
So just maybe a little different perspective is that we can look back. I can say I coulda, shoulda, woulda. I could have bought that piece of beachfront for $400,000 and now it's selling for $8 million. I don't think that's ever going to change in your lifetime. When you 30-year-olds or 60-year-olds like me, you're going to look back and go, I remember when I could have bought a lot in Ybor for $7 million. I should have jumped all over it. My point is, you have to deal with what you can influence. Not what the world is giving you. You got to figure out a way yourself. So my advice is turn off the TV, put your phones down, listen to motivational people and read about people that's done it. And then, I hate to say this, and somebody may come back and beat me up one day, but you got to take risk. You have to take risks. You got to find a way to do it. You got to go out and meet people. You can't be scared to go ask to borrow money. You got to find a group that you can put funds together. You got to find an architect and a planner and an attorney or somebody to work with you if you're going to develop something, or those people in the business if it's tech or whatever. But don't be afraid to ask. Stick your neck out, learn, and go ask and risk it, and you'll build a business and it'll work.
And you're finding a place for their money that's good for them instead of it sitting around idle. You're finding a good purpose for their money.
It's very true, and I think when you say take those risks, at the risk of sounding a little woo-woo, sometimes it really is a gut sense. It is a full visceral reaction when you start to get that risky feeling. You go, should I do this? Can I do this? And you try to shake it. My advice to all of you would be shake it. Shake that risk. No way. And if it keeps coming back and it keeps haunting you and it keeps you awake at night, that's the risk to take. And in a community like this, you can start over, I think, in many different ways. This is the kind of community that still believes, and tell me if you disagree, but I see it very differently. And even, being in the Boston area, this is a face-to-face community. They do things like this, where a networking group can learn from each other, hold each other up. People still want to meet for coffee in person. People still want to go to dinner. They still want to show you, their office and their facilities. When you think about what makes Tampa be a place that you want to stay, what is the secret sauce, that sweet spot? If you were to, somebody in this room is thinking, you know what, should I go all in Tampa?
So first of all, maybe I sounded a little negative in that last answer. I agree with Walt overarchingly. I think risk taking is a huge piece of success. And the great news about Tampa is it kind of feels like we're at like an IPO, or like we're at the beginning of something awesome. And to be a young person in business in this city at this time is an awesome feeling. There's so much faith in this market and confidence in this market. Yeah. And I think that makes taking risks a little bit easier. If you're in a market, Chicago, DC, West Coast, right, and you have a lot of fallout, you have a net migration pattern out of your market, right? Every trend shows your tax level might not meet your burdens. Those things are negative, and taking a risk in that market is scary. We have every excuse in the world to be bold in this market here. So I think taking risks are extremely important, and I think if you're going to do it anywhere, Tampa's a damn good place to do it.
I'm going to disagree just a little bit with my dear friend. We are indeed at a moment of truth. But I fear if we don't fix the transportation alternatives and render housing affordable again, miraculously, a hill upon which we die, we're not going to be able to sustain it. We've enjoyed the good stuff and the capacity of our roads. When we run out of the capacity of our roads, as you've noticed the last 6 months, we turn it into a place that a year or 3 ago was heaven, like my sunshiny grandson, but it's not staying sunshiny heaven in congestion until we get our act together on transit, get our act together on bus rapid transit, we get our act together on subsidizing for the poor, the elderly, and the disabled, the transportation on twice as many buses as we go to rail, and figure it the hell out. If we're going to stay the great badass city that we are going to have to solve the transportation problem soon, and we're going to have to solve the affordable housing problem soon too, where people cannot keep coming, and the marginalized on those wages not growing fast enough are gonna have to leave, because I price stuff in Birmingham or somewhere and I find that it's 20% less expensive in virtually every southern city but Tampa, Florida, unlike the opposite in my 50 careers, where I'd often see Tampa was the cheapest in everything you could buy for 25 of my 50 years. Forgive me, Garrett.
No, I mean, I agree. This came loose, David, sorry, I'll just hold it. I agree 100%. And taking risks in business and being bold because of where we are as a city is a great thing, but you're 100% right. It'd be a shame to screw a good thing up.
Thank you.
And to not focus on those items, transportation, affordable housing, rising wages, would be silly. We have a long way to go, but we have bright minds and great optimism that I think will get us there. It'll just take time and political will, which needs to change. But I agree 100%.
With conservative chastity belts on their wallets, it still scare me. Okay.
I understand.
When this conversation, when it's starts to bounce back and forth like this is when I start to see people in the audience wanting to weigh in. Question really quick. I saw a question over here. Do you want to jump in?
Related to transportation and affordable. Oh, I'm Dallas Sento. I work for Samus Law Firm. I'm a criminal defense attorney. Related to the transportation issue specifically, how can we get involved in helping that? Because I've sat in on a city council meeting where Hart was giving a presentation on like your budget and applications for grants. But what can we as members of the community do to help support and learn more about those different initiatives and projects so that we can help grow our community as well?
We used to write editorials in the paper, and the paper's fading away. Therefore, in social media and every media outlet you can find, I would do a basic plea to your fellows of your same age that there are 3 great advantages of being stingy about transportation and affordable housing for others. And there are 3 distinct disadvantages for the heart, the head, the future, our children, our consciences, and our chances at a future. For my sunshiny grandson needs to have folks like you post what's at stake for their future, because when it sneaks up on them in 12 or 14 years that we're 20 years too late on transit, we're 19th out of 20 great cities in America. Detroit just announced a mass transit project that will make us 20th of the 20 cities of America on transportation. Figure out what that means for my sunshiny grandson and write it up. Write up what we have to do about it and what each of our role is on that hill. If you got a car behind them,
to find out what to do.
okay, that's where the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, can give you all kinds of statistics. You need to go to Johnny Wong at the Metropolitan Planning Organization and say, Johnny, what's the next 3 needs that are being urgently needed and are not being met? And he'll tell you, it's this road to here, it's this breakthrough to here, it's this link to here, it's this early mass transit, it's buying a rail station location and buying the right-of-way for a dedicated bus lane in 2025 instead of in 2035 when it'll cost 3 times as much, dear Garrett. And he'll tell you exactly where we didn't get it in the budget this time. And then go for the next one. Go for the next big thing that is the link to a future that includes mobility.
And I love that we're sharing resources too, because that's really important as we start to hear what it is that you want to do to activate your leadership in this city. Then there are resources. Is there that's a great tangible thing to do to go get information. Do you have any advice about some resources or places where if everybody in this room is looking for how do I get involved in?
I mean, that's what my show has turned into,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, is that question right there is probably the most
10,000
important.
folks, yeah.
Well, asking the questions and trying to understand what the hell's going on and how do we fix it. The how do we fix it's the most important thing. My show has kind of turned into this expose or maybe investigative journalistic type thing into talking with the people that are in charge of that kind of stuff. Because a lot of us, we're just in business. We're worried about our gas tank and our food and what, our career path. We don't necessarily have the time to keep track of all this stuff. So you guys can check out my show. I have the people that are in charge of our transportation, local politicians, different city leaders in business, and I'm asking those questions. I think the first step is the conversation. I think we all kind of know where we want to be. I mean, we need more public transportation. What exactly do we need? Well, we want to expand the trolley. We want light rail regionally. We don't necessarily want more highways, more roadways ripping through everywhere. If you're a city person, you really believe in that walkable, interconnected environment. Someone in the county sees it differently. One of the big issues is the constituencies want different things. And in politics, when you have a disagreement, that means more money, more time, and usually not, yeah, exactly, right? Butting of heads. And so when you have someone that lives out in 5 acres in unincorporated Hillsborough, and they have 1 vote, and you have 1 vote, and you live in the city and you want walkability, you're going to be voting for different things. So there is this like systemic thing in that regard where we are in an uphill battle to tackle some of those challenges. But if enough of us get together, we will win. So stay connected, check out the show, check out the MPO, right? All these resources, stay in the know. And then like Ron said, get on social and get together with people. I'm going to be doing some sort of events of some sort next year and trying to gather people and rally around these subjects. I think that could help. Right, it's at least the first step. But yeah, I agree with Ron. Like the first thing is getting together and talking about your grievances.
About 15 years ago, an unsuccessful candidate for governor, the late Bill McBride, assembled about 300 of us at MOSI and filled it up just sitting around tables, talking about what each of us 300 could do about it. It was called Tomorrow Matters, Hillsborough Tomorrow. Just Google the archives for Hillsborough Tomorrow Tomorrow Matters, where 300 of us went to Mosey, sat around tables, and talked this out about what each one of the other 299 of us could do in storming that hill. And then we got 2 or 3 different community investment taxes and 2 or 3 different renewals of taxes and some courage from 3 different county commissioners.
It's interesting. There's
The affordable housing and attainable housing, I think, is important, more so where my focus has been. And, you know, we need to find a way that as we build these 3,500 luxury units at Water Street, we also need, 7,000 affordable and attainable properties as well, and that's important. There's just, I'm not a politician. I'm kind of the opposite of Ron. I kind of run from events like this sometimes, and want to go do my work and draw and think but the bureaucracy that we have to go through as a developer and an architect to get something done is 3 times as hard as it was when I came to Tampa. To go down and get an approval to do something, even if you're doing it good. If you're, developers, we all have, we're the bad guys, right? Daryl Shaw might have come along to be one of the first white hats in the area. He's a good guy, and Vinnick. They've done darn good, but you can think that, the city is not going to do it by themselves. It's going to take people like you that want to develop and find a way to put a team together that can go make these projects happen. And when you go for subsidies and government money, it's even harder and thicker in the red tape, and it wears people like me completely out. So I'm interested in trying to find a way to do, focusing now on a more attainable housing, not affordability where we're getting subsidies to 60% AMI type rents, but trying to offer up things that might be 25 or 30% less than market rate, and how a young person coming in making a salary that 30% of that can go to rent, and you sure can't come down here and get a studio for $2,200 a month or $2,500 a month where you want to live in an urban environment. So we're trying to, we're working on that excites me a lot, and I'm hoping there's more people that will follow that as well.
Well said.
It's almost, as much as you look at the resources that are around, an undercurrent here too is you can become the resource. Coming at it from a media perspective, when I started, we were the source of information. We were the place to come to. We would go and interview people and hold them accountable. Now you can have a podcast that's making those waves. Now you can have a social media influencer who is calling for change. I think about people that I've followed for a long time that used to seem sort of, far out there. I think about like food activists that would be talking about, hey, the chemicals in your food, and now all of a sudden this is a huge national discussion. And 10 years ago there was one mom who was like, what's this color in my kids' Fruit Loops? So if something really strikes you, and you want that answer, and you start asking it, social media, video, that is the great equalizer. We all have a voice now. It has made everybody a star, everybody. With my company, I say, you are the show. What is it that you want to perform? What is it that you want out there? So think about, too, how can you become that connecting force? And how can you then draw your people to you? Because that's what even this room is right here today, is you are like-minded people and you're resources for each other. If you were to give somebody a takeaway, hey, I'm building my business, I want to make a difference, that is unique to Tampa, what would you say? I heard you say, like, this is the moment, things have changed, things got truncated, we got kind of pushed into making decisions. And what would your advice be for somebody right now?
In the context of just the growing...
Building, growing. These
Yeah.
are all... Everybody in this room is here because they want to be a leader, let's be honest. You don't want to just, survive day to day. You want to make an impact. You want your product, your vision to matter, to be remembered, to have impact.
It probably sounds cliche, but do what you love, right? Follow your interests. I think when something becomes not fun, or if it becomes a headache, Like with the show I do it because I love it. I love talking to people and figuring out these problems. And I think at the moment it becomes not that, I would hate it and I would quit and I just wouldn't want to do it. You got to find something you're interested in. That's challenging if you're in a job you don't like and you got to pay the bills, right? But figure out a way to stick it out and save your money and make a transition. Like we're a lot of people, most people in this room are young, so we have that luxury. We have that opportunity. You know, when you get 35 years into a career, like the gentleman next to me, right? Both gentlemen next to me, you know, it's very hard to make that transition. You have a wife and a kids and associates and obligations. We have the opportunity to figure out something we're very passionate about and follow that path. And that passion and that fun and that excitement will carry you through the hard times. There's going to be hard times, but just find something you truly enjoy doing and continue to hit the gas and move forward.
It's that hill you said. Find the hill to die on, right?
Find a hill to die on. Let me talk about passion clarity, because I agree 100%. Passion clarity goes back to something that one of the founders of this town, Mr. Likes, told me once, way back when. He said, I dropped 90% of what I'm doing, Ron. He called me Mr. Weaver then because I was so young. He said, Mr. Weaver, as if he knew all of this good stuff, and dressed as egregiously arrogantly as I do now. And he just said, Mr. Weaver, I've dropped 90% of what I'm doing, and I only do the 10% now. That is where I'm having fun, and I alone can make the deciding difference. I said, wow, I love that. Find your passion and the clarity of your passion. And it meets both tests. Not one half of that, but when it meets both those tests, you're actually having fun doing it, and your skill set, I see it in some of your eyes, especially over in this table. I can see it in your eyes. I see where you nod at. I see how you mean it. You know, I can see you with your carbine, loading up, locked and loaded. You know what I mean? I can sense that you realize there are places where you alone can make the difference. Jeff Vinnick was asked for $10 million by Duke University, said, hell no, and get the hell out of my office. And Vinnick, and they said, can I come back in 6 weeks? And so the Duke folks came back in 6 weeks, and they presented him with 10 different, one at a time, $1 million breakthroughs in their cancer research and in their other programs like frictionless energy, clean renewable energy. And he said, I would make that difference. He says, you make that difference. We've got 7 million and no way of getting the 8th million. The 8th million will take us over the top on this kind of a cancer cure, on this kind of a frictionless engine, on this kind of a clean, renewable energy, et cetera. And he saw all 10 breakthroughs and gave them $1 million at a time. Hell no to the 2nd million. Wait a minute, you're doing what? And I would be the breakthrough. You be the one who can make the difference. And I promise you, not only will you feel an enormous sense of purpose because you were the one that was able to make the difference, that whole cause will move only because of you, and you'll feel it, and your community will feel it if you're the one that can make the difference. Find that place, not only the hill where you're going to die on, but the hill where only you can make the difference. Only you can carry the satchel. Only you can aim the right mortar.
Sir. I think I'd rather find the hill that I can strive on than die on. Thank you very much, because it doesn't really sound that exciting. But I get the point. You know, the Chancey Design Partnership for years in our big kitchen was creativity, dedication, and passion. So Garrett started with passion. Yeah, we've all got it. You would not be here today doing what you're doing if you weren't passionate about what you're doing. Dedication is just the hard work. You got to roll up your sleeves and you got to work harder than the next guy trying to do the same thing you're doing. But to me, I kind of said this before, I think really the success is going to come through your relationships and finding, you know, one day you're going to meet somebody that's going to change your life. Now, whether that's a spouse or a boss or a partner, but usually it's just an impromptu meeting of somebody that knows something about what you're doing that can go, oh, I know a guy or a gal doing this, go talk to them. So again, relationships are very important. And then this city, it's a small town, it's getting to be a big city, but there's still the relationships are very important.
Absolutely, well said.
Success really isn't, we've all heard this, that success isn't a destination, that it's a mindset. And so if it's a mindset and it's a way that fuels you moving forward, then sometimes success isn't going to feel comfortable. Sometimes success is going to feel like struggling. And so when you feel like you're struggling, if you can take that step back and be up on that hill that you're climbing, thriving on, ready to die on because you're so passionate, if you have that view and you say, why is this so hard? It's probably because you are succeeding and you are climbing that hill. So I want to check in with the room and see if there's any questions right now for our panel in terms of how you can activate, your business, your plans personally, or anything that you'd like to dig in on a little more that you've heard them talk about. Or do we have shyness? Because I'll keep asking questions. That's my passion.
I've got kind of a random question. So, Ben Prescott Financial.
Thank you, Ben.
Yes, sir. People forget that Tampa is still part of the South, and we are a vibrant Southern community here. Where do y'all, pun intended, see the Southern charm of Tampa really come out?
Right here in Ybor. Ybor was unique at the time, right? For a southern city to be so diverse. My family was Sicilian. There was Sicilians and Italians, Spaniards, German, a smaller Asian population, Cuban. Am I missing anything? Mainly, right? Right, mainly, right? So we've always been this really interesting kind of old world southern city with a little bit of Hispanic and Latin flair to it. And when you come to a place like Ybor City, it's so apparent. Some good things are happening too. They're re-bricking 7th Avenue, bringing back those bricks. Walt's done a fantastic job at a lot of these buildings around here, like the Italian Club. They did a lot of that restoration. There's an effort to keep that culture alive. I think as long as that's in place, we'll still be able to share those stories. The danger is you get a bunch of people from New York and California and all over the country and all over the world coming here and moving here, and that's great, but it's not great if we abandon our culture and abandon that Southern heritage. So as long as we keep having events like this, sharing those stories, and there's an effort by the business people in this community to invest, and the city's putting funds into re-bricking and all those projects, I think we'll be all right.
I think the most charming thing about the South in its better days and its enlightened days is it's a sense of quietly going and doing the right thing against your own financial interest with people whom you may not usually socialize with, and then quietly stepping back from it, the way George Steinbrenner would go and find 50 different fields that didn't have lights, and you get $200,000 worth of lights in 50 different fields and not even tell anybody about it. That is the noblesse oblige, not a condescending noblesse oblige, but a finding of the place, like the breakthroughs we talked about, but it's finding them anonymously and quietly, and it's the place where you not only can make a difference in a life, but I believe that there's a certain Southern charm in that. And I've seen it many times growing up in North Carolina, where there would simply be that kind of a conscience and that kind of a person in the community. And I believe that some of that most charming thing I think about certain enlightened social leaders, the ability to go in and take some situation and actually, not just make the difference, but to actually inspire other people to also make a difference there.
Yeah.
Sir.
No, and Garrett hit. I think the culture of Tampa has. You mentioned people from New York and California come in. Well, you Italians and Cubans and everybody else. So the blend, the melting pot, which is Tampa, it still has a blend of that. I'd say charm and hospitality. My mother would call it manners. You open the door for the lady, you say please and thank you. And I hope we don't get too far away from the manners that brought us there. And it's, the empathy and how we treat each other. As we grow and get so big and so fast and, things are going on and it's so active, we forget to to let the next driver in when he's got his blinker on. We honk at them because they're trying to turn. And so if we can, kind of remember our roots, at least us older people, and find that charm that made us the cultural place that we were, if we can find a way to continue that, we'll be a better city as we grow larger.
The pace, right? It's the pace. I think the biggest thing that I notice when I travel, or the first thing that I noticed when I moved here, is that there was not a false sense of urgency. There is urgency, but there isn't that invented, I've got to rush here, I've got to go here, because busy certainly isn't an indicator of success. Busy is what happens when we have that, oh my gosh, I have to compare myself to everybody else and I'm in a race. And I think that that's the charm of Tampa, is you can do it in your time with the right people. And sure, you don't want to, sit around and be lackadaisical about your dreams, but the pace is the magic.
Great question, Ben Prescott Financial. Thank you for asking.
Yes, and who's our lovely person keeping us, like, who are you? Who are you? I love that. I need you to follow me around and make sure I get all the questions answered. What's your name? Let's get you. Everybody needs someone holding them accountable for the daily admin, right? We have time for one last question, if anybody wants to jump in here.
One in the back, question.
In the back? Question? Oh, no, she was the one telling me time for one more question. Yeah.
So Chris Wilson, Hillsborough County, moved here 12 years ago, 13 years ago, to work at the Tampa Bay Business Journal. Was one of the deputy editors there. And I sat at a party that was being held in a dirt lot in front of an old trolley barn, and they were telling us, oh, we're going to turn this into this really cool, restaurant scene, and I just thought, fat chance. We're going to turn that big, ugly trolley barn into anything, and then they did it. And so you guys were talking about that moment, that things kind of when I saw that they turned that into quite literally something, I thought this time we can kind of figure it out. So my question, particularly because we've got the exact panelists that we do, is about, we were talking about charm a second ago, is about architecture and soul. So I live in a part of town called Wild West Tampa, and there's a lot of really crummy housing, really soulless, not interesting homes being torn down and replaced by big boxes that got picked out of the catalog.
Yeah.
Particularly on my street, there's an alley behind us, and people are tearing down an old house and building a new house with a garage on the front, even though there's an alley in the back that they could absolutely put a garage on and have a much more charming frontage for their house. So my architecture and soul question is, as we start to grow in this accordion compacted way, how do we preserve some individuality and charm when big business is here trying to sell us cookie cutter homes out of the catalog?
That's a great question, because I don't think anyone wants to live in a city that's just some vanilla McMansion type situation. I don't know that anyone likes that. I think you might appreciate the price you pay because you get a lot for your money. I don't think it's a good vision for the future, though. The way you hedge that, I think there's a couple things you can do, and I'll let the architect speak mostly on this, but first of all, from a city perspective, right now Tampa's undergoing a land development code rewrite. And we have a chance to put in that a form-based code, right? We have a chance to put some of those stipulations in place that are going to require developers and someone building a home, all the way down to maybe if you wanted to build a home in West Tampa, requiring some of those looks. I don't know what they would be exactly, of course, that would have to be worked out, but there's an opportunity to make that change in a code and say, hey, look, West Tampa should look like this in general, Tampa Heights, et cetera, right? All around the city. And then as far as what we can do individually is keep making it clear to the public and to other developers, and from a neighborhood perspective, that's what you want. You know, if some developer comes in and builds some crappy box product, the whole neighborhood's going to be upset at them. And I think there's a great power in a social kind of, you don't want to piss off your neighbors type thing. And I think speaking out about it and saying, we don't want that crap built in our neighborhood is a powerful tool to use.
Walt's going to answer the real question, but I remember when Wynwood was soulless. And I watched the way that Wynwood got its soul with the help of arts. And I believe candidly that a lot of times, as in those 8 beautiful different color houses in Sarasota there across from Van Wezel, those 8 houses of different colors from Solus across from Van Wezel to Seoul. I believe, and Walt's going to speak to the issues of how we restore the neighborhoods and their soul. But tomorrow morning at 9:30, if you want a hill to climb, to strive on, it's on Hannah is the new beautiful city building. It's the city services building on Hannah Avenue, about 2 miles north of here on Hannah, just about this far east. You're going to be there at 9:30, because at 9:30, my former law partner, Jake Kramer, is chairman, and he'll have a bunch of folks like you who will come together for the 2-year rewrite of the City of Tampa Code. So simply go to the desk, that beautiful new city facilities building, city services building on Hannah, 2 miles north of here, at 9:30 a.m. and pitch in your thoughts on this subject to make sure that it's not only in the city code, but it inspires a dozen others to follow the genius that y'all come up with in the City of Tampa Code. Walt?
Well, I don't have an answer. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because you've got property rights, you've got economics of building and what you want to do for your family, and for somebody to tell you what you can and can't do is hard. On the other hand, you're destroying the cultural underlayment of a neighborhood, or especially when you look at historic districts. So I don't have the answer. I think the involvement in this opportunity of form-based codes that Garrett mentions is an opportunity for people to speak their voice, and I think that we've got to find a way to allow people to build and to work with developers and work with a city that's not quite as much red tape, but also provides for guidance in the general size, mass, form, setbacks, access, and those types of things. So it's a hard one. I wish I had better answers, but get involved. That's what I'd say.
How many of you know what a performance-based code is?
Form-based.
The form-based code. How many know what a form-based code is? A form-based code, correct me if I'm wrong, is one where you draw out what it really ought to ideally be and look like as far as trees, setbacks, wider sidewalks, amenities on the corner, etc. And then when it's time to approve it, form-based code is a virtual pre-approval of anything that's both safe and meets those form-based code standards. So I do thank y'all for that. Give me a sort of.
No, you're good. You're good. It's talk about it, but then it's the whole put your money where your mouth is. It's do it. The difference between people who really are the leaders and people who inspire the leaders and are very important are the ones who take action. So when you have these conversations, just go home and say, okay, what am I gonna do with this information that I gained today? This has been incredible of a conversation. I feel like we got to just open up your beautiful brains and tip out some really fascinating facts. And I appreciate everybody's thoughtful questions so much. And I was honored to be a part of this panel. Let's have a big round of applause. Huge thank you for our panelists talking.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.